Live long and prosper.
I was going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
Lilu Dallas Multipass.
Shut up and take my money.
By Grabthar's hammer. What a saving.
One does not simply walk into Mordor.
X never, ever marks the spot.
Winter is coming.
You're a wizard, Harry.
Stay a while and listen.
Hey, old Kermit the Frog here.
Bow ties are cool.
So say we all.
This is a Play on Nerds.
Welcome to a Play on Nerds episode 214. I'm Jarman.
And I'm Steve.
Oh yeah, we got a great episode for you today. In honor of the soon-to-be-released Section 31 Star Trek movie on Paramount Plus, probably already out by the time you're hearing this, we're reviewing another film renowned for its space action, intricate plot lines, just beautiful cinematography and top-class acting and subterfuge. 1978's Starcrash.
That's right. That's going to be crashing into this episode later.
That's right.
But before that, Jarman, what have you been up to since the last time we talked?
We've been off for a little while. Just been super busy with work. And I also have my friend's wedding happened. I wasn't even thinking about it. And then we had a bachelor party. So Steve and I couldn't record, where we just kind of hung out, and as old men, this guy getting married the same age as me, we were tired. We went to a bar and just talked for like 3 hours. It was fantastic.
I was going to ask which mini golf place, but that makes sense too.
We brought all these board games to play, but all four of us hadn't been together in a long time, me and these three other guys. So it just was us catching up and chucking and shooting the shit. And I just been recording, romance novel after romance novel, back to back to back. And it's been a thing. And it got super cold, which I think Steve will talk about too, with an Arctic blast. So there's been snow in Florida where I live, but not where I'm living right here in Orlando, just in northern Florida. But Steve, how you been holding up?
Well, last time we talked, I think I had just gotten over sickness.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Getting ready to go back to work. Well, then we had, a few days of relative wellness, and then this past Friday, Anna got really sick.
Oh no!
Fever, cough, whole 9 yards. So the upside to this was on Saturday, which I had off. I got to take Dilly and Joyce to a birthday party.
Nice. At
a carpet skate park, which I think I've talked about before. You put on these like plastic shoe things, and the whole place is carpeted with ramps and crap. And I went in, and it was so much bigger and more insane than I could have possibly imagined.
Oh, you had been there before. Okay.
I dropped them off, but then Mom was the one that went to the party because Dilly was just too little last time. Mm-hmm. And so him and I went and did something while Mom went to the party. But this time I got to go, and it's 30,000 square feet.
Jeez. They
have like a Ninja Warrior obstacle course thing. They have like 7 bouncy houses, an arcade, and then the rest is just carpeted with built-in basically skate ramps.
Wow.
Covered in carpet. It was nuts. It is like a liability injury.
I'll just say 5 injuries a day.
You have
at
to
least.
sign a huge waiver. They did have helmets that they recommended for anyone that was like 6 and under. So Dilly wore a helmet.
Of course.
Which is good because Joyce almost immediately kicked him in the head. Almost immediately.
On accident, I hope, not on purpose.
It was like she was going down. He came down after her, and she had turned, but like it was the second time they went down a thing.
Oh my God.
Like it was almost immediate. And that was good. But then we came home that night, and Joyce started feeling crummy. And by that evening, Joyce had a fever of like 104.
Oh my God.
So Joyce and Anna were sick. So we spent Sunday laying low, keeping an eye on Dilly, and me just taking care of kind of the gang. So we're still a house of sickness. Joyce is on the mend. Anna's still kind of towards the end of it. And Dilly's the only one that's escaped this round.
Oh, he'll be next
week. Yeah. But it's been good that we've been hunkering down and kind of being lazy because it is so cold here. It is so cold. Today was a luxury because the high was 28.
Wow. Yeah.
Yesterday, which was the coldest day, the high was 11.
Oh my God.
When I went to work in the morning, it was -4.
Sorry, I don't know what that is in Celsius for you folks out there. I'm not sure.
It's like -60 or something. It doesn't matter. I don't know. How much is it in kilos? I don't know.
Kilos. -4 in Celsius. Let's check it out.
But I learned something about my car.
Mm-hmm.
So I went and turned on fine. But I noticed that I don't really have like digital displays, but they've got like little pips on them.
Yeah.
So I've got one for like my approximate miles per gallon and another one that shows like, how much gas I have. And there's just these little electronic meter kind of things. Not a moving arm, but like a little LCD kind of deal. And apparently when those get cold enough, they just kind of don't work.
Oh, great.
So I turned my car on and like my thing that measured that like estimates my miles per gallon went up and then it just stayed. And then they started going down. The top one was still there, like in its spot. And then I looked down, and my clock looks like the hieroglyphics from Lost. It's just random symbols. I went, oh no. But I did not know that a car could get so cold that the like electronic displays would not work right.
It's like the bad numbers in Severance that make you feel scared.
Yeah. But after about 15 minutes of driving and the car had warmed up and it went from -4 to 1, they started working again. But I've never experienced that level of cold where electronics stop working correctly.
I'm glad they went back to normal eventually. Didn't break them permanently.
They did. But just to give you an example, I got in my car and drove to work, and I was in my car a full 10 minutes with the heat on full before my breath stopped fogging in my car. It was so cold.
Yeah, the last time I went there during the snow blast, it was like our beards froze when we were cleaning off your car, and that wasn't even as bad as it is now.
Yeah,
so.
that was, well, that week was worse. Like that week was yesterday, but when you were there, it was like 5 days in a row.
Oh, yeah.
It's been cold here, but yesterday was the only day where it was like crazy sub-zero temperature cold. But yeah, when you guys were here, it got down to like -12 at one point.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay, yeah.
It was so cold.
By the way, -4 for you Celsius folks is -20 degrees Celsius. So if that means something,
that wasn't that far off with -40, right?
Yeah, you're pretty close.
Or -60? I don't know. Math's hard.
Wow. Okay, so you're holding out.
But yeah, so the good news is we've been sick, and so the cold has given us a reason to just kind of lay low and recuperate as a family.
School gets canceled and all that stuff.
Oh yeah, Joyce had remote days. Dilly had remote days. Really, they're worried about kids like freezing to death at their bus stops. Really,
yeah, that's true.
Down to.
And usually it's like the pipes are frozen at schools and stuff. They can't get water, and so it's just not safe. Just don't go. Well, does that bring us to some nerdy news?
It's just been friggin' cold. Yeah, nerdy news.
It's time for Nerdy News.
All right, this week the cheeky name for my cheeky story is You Got Crabs. Well, the European green crabs were introduced to the west coast of the United States sometime in the 80s and have become a major pain in the ass ecologically ever since. They're only about 4 inches at their largest, but the problem is that they eat eggs, specifically native salmon and king crab eggs. In addition, they destroy these seagrass forests that lots and lots of fish rely on for shelter and food. Well, a new fighter has entered the ring, the southern sea otter. These cute sea dogs were almost hunted to extinction in the 1800s. At one point, scientists estimated that there was only like 2,000 left in the wild at their lowest point. They've since made a comeback, and part of that is because they are feasting their way back to success. Scientists have clocked these guys eating as many as 30 green crabs in an hour, and they believe that the current population and its estimates eats as many as 120,000 of these green crabs in a year.
Wow.
But the proof is in the pudding, or at least the traps they're using. In the early 2000s, scientists set test traps, and in these test traps, at the time they pulled up typically more than 100 green crabs per trap on average. They recently repeated the experiment, and on average, the traps they had less than 10.
Wow.
So the
Big
southern
difference.
sea otters are coming back. They're fighting this invasive species, and finally nature is righting itself a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, nature tends to do that. Nature will find a way, as a
but they talked about how this is sort of the importance of apex predators in ecosystems, is because when an invasive species is brought in, it can bolster one of those apex predators. But if those apex predators are gone through hunting or through, losing their homes or whatever, this invasive species can, in many cases, run wild.
That's what we have going on in Florida right now. Is
there's nothing there to combat it.
There's these Cuban tree frogs, I think they're called, that have been were brought here illegally, and now their population's booming in Florida, and they're real big, and they're very invasive. They eat the wrong things for our ecosystem apparently, and they literally sent a statement out from the government to just, if you find them, please kill them. And so they're just trying to find something that will be their predator and to eat them, to get rid of them, because otherwise they eat the wrong bugs and it destroys the whole ecosystem. So just giant frogs.
We have I think lantern flies.
Oh.
That came over on some decorative trees at some point, and they just eat trees here alive and kill them. Ooh. And it's basically kill on sight. But what I keep saying is the first bird that figures out how slow and dumb these things are and gets a taste for them is going to become the most populous bird in the state.
Heck yeah.
So at this point, I'm just hoping that something gets a taste for them, because they are slow and they are dumb. And when they go through 3 stages where they're like little, medium, big. They can only, when they're little, they can only jump forward. They literally don't have locomotion to go backwards. So they are super easy to kill, because you just get in front of them and they will jump under your foot. They literally biologically have no choice but to jump under your foot.
That's hilarious.
So that's nerdy news, and that's You Got Crabs.
But that brings us to our main segment, which we are talking about the classic 1978 smash hit Starcrash.
Well, it certainly smashed into something.
Yes.
All right. A ship travels across space. They're all wearing terrible helmets, and they're scanning a planet when they are suddenly knocked off course by a strange red being or force of some sort, crashing into peril. We then get a cut to a different ship that's being pulled over by Thor, the chief of the Imperial Police. And there's also a police robot with a southern accent there. We meet Stella and Acton, who are outlaws, and they make a run for it, zooming into hyperspace, which is just red light pointed at the camera. They escape with almost no difficulty, but find themselves facing down a neutron star. They eject part of the ship and celebrate, but they then see a derelict ship and zip over to find a survivor, weak and rambling, and suddenly the cops are back. And all of this happens in about 4 minutes, guys.
Real fast.
Everything I just made happened so fast in about 4 minutes. Elsewhere, we meet a bad guy with crazy hair. He says he sends 2 robots to get something, and they shouldn't fail him. The robots are so distracting that the plot doesn't matter. We then cut to a squid man face bubble man. It was the best. Who sentences the 2 pirates to prison. Suddenly, Stella Star is in lingerie at a prison camp, talking to characters that they're acting like she's known for weeks. Within literal moments, she stages an escape with no preparation. 2 characters that we just met are immediately killed. And then the prison explodes. And Stella runs through a field.
Somehow. I don't know how she got there, but yep.
A spaceship touches down. She boards it cautiously. The robot police, Ellie, is there, but he isn't there to arrest her. They go to retrieve her friend, Acton, and then leave, once again, with no resistance or plot. Them being imprisoned that whole thing, them being sentenced, imprisoned, escaped, the death of people, reuniting, is another 4 minutes. I told Anna, this whole movie happens in weird 4-minute chunks where everything that happens is immediately undone.
And I wrote, I didn't know why she was suddenly in lingerie and none of the other prisoners were, but she was wearing no clothes.
Yeah. They then meet with a hologram of the Emperor of the universe. The terrible Count has created a vast weapon hidden inside a planet. They have to find the missing ship from the opening of the movie and discover the secret of the weapon and try to destroy it. This seems like a lot of work for 2 pirates, but maybe I'm wrong. Also, the commander of the ship, which is the Emperor's son, we find out, he wants to know what happened to the commander of the ship. They blast off with the green police officer Thor and the robot police officer Ellie. And within 5 minutes, they have found the missing ship. No struggle. They just find it. Just then, women on red horses ride up, taking them captain. It's the Amazon. They immediately shoot the robot police officer, and Stella then single-handedly beats every single one of them up. Stella is dragged in front of Queen Corellia. For some reason, all of these women are in lingerie that I'm just mentioning. Suddenly, RoboCop is back. He grabs the Queen at gunpoint, which allows them to escape. The Queen activates a giant robot guardian, which threatens to crush our heroes. But just then, a ship blasts it, and they make their escape. Suddenly, they're being chased and under attack by Amazon warships. They destroy them with apparent ease and head to the next planet, looking for the rest of the ship. This part also happens in about 4 minutes. Everything I just said happens in about 4 minutes.
4-minute chunks, folks. That's what this movie's about.
4-minute chunks, this whole movie. They head to the next planet. It's an inhospitable, they say hot and cold tundra planet, but we only see cold, so I'm really not sure why they tried to sell it that way. Stella changes to some more appropriate cold weather lingerie, which is a nice change.
She's got leggings on now.
They find the remains of the wreckage and then decide it's time to leave with almost no investigation. They try to go back to the ship, but meanwhile, the green police officer Thor has betrayed them and knocks out Acton, and he calls the bad guy for exposition reasons. The ship malfunctions, so the green policeman can't go anywhere. Just then Stella and RoboCop return, but green guy won't let them back on. So Stella and Ellie hold hands and lay in the snow, and Ellie keeps her alive with robot magic, is what I wrote.
I guess.
But Acton is back, baby. He defeats the police officer, Green Thor. Acton in this thing is shot repeatedly with the laser guns. The beams either go straight through him or don't affect him. And then he reflects them back, killing Thor with his own laser gun.
It's force powers. That's what it is. Yeah.
They, Acton takes back over the ship. They get Frozen Stella back on board and just defrost her, I guess, with robot magic. But they're still stuck because of the malfunction. But clever Acton disabled the ship. And without any hardship or drama or suspense, it's all resolved. Once again, about 4 minutes. Somehow, this leads her to jump to the conclusion that Atkin can see the future.
Yeah. And
like, I don't know how this jump in logic was made, but he can see the future. So he can bounce laser beams and tell the future, just to keep track of the powers.
For some reason, they don't explain why.
Nope, they don't really explain why. Just then, they're attacked by a red interstellar lava lamp creature, I guess. They make it away and go to the third crash site to investigate. Then the exact same thing happens, and they are set upon by locals. This time it's cavemen, though. They bash Ellie, who doesn't twitch this time. That was like maybe one of the 2 good pieces of cinematography in this entire film. They carry off Stella. She is being hung over a fire, and suddenly a silver masked, like the creature from the Black Lagoon looking masked man, appears and shoots lasers out of his eyes. He takes her back, and it's David Hasselhoff. The cavemen return. He is the captain they're looking for. The cavemen return and are about to kill them, but then Acton is there with a laser sword and cuts them down while the remainder of them scatter. Once again, basically unexplained.
4 minutes.
They have to form. That might have been 5.
Oh, okay.
They
all
really
right.
extended the meeting of David Hasselhoff longer than they needed to.
True.
But they have to go find the planet, but they're already on the planet. Gasp. They find the machinery. I love how they're like, we don't know this is the planet. This is the planet that's the weapon. They go, let's go look at that machinery down there. And I'll go, so there was machinery in this planet. And you guys didn't go check it out, but you knew about it?
Or did they? I don't know.
Oh,
It's
they literally know. He's literally like, let's go see this machinery. They say it out loud. So they find the machinery and figure out how that like red lava lamp monster thing is being projected. But suddenly the evil count, his guards, and 2 robot pirates show up. Haha, they fell right into his trap, I guess. He is going to destroy the galaxy or whatever. And instead of killing them, leaves them with the robot pirates. Acton pulls his light sword. And then I wrote, why does Acton's sword bounce off of their metal blades, but can cut right through their metal bodies?
Who knows?
It doesn't make sense. Acton is injured. Simon Hoff grabs the sword and finishes the pirates off because he's way better at it too.
Yeah, he was.
Acton dies. He turns into energy or something.
A force ghost, yeah.
Yeah, kind of, but with more wiggly lines. Then suddenly the Emperor is there. Christopher Plummer finally, hopefully reining this movie in. And I suddenly realized through the next scenes that Stella had stopped being the protagonist of the movie the moment that Hasselhoff got on the screen.
Yeah, like halfway through the movie.
Rewatch it. It is stark. I went, oh, she's not the main character anymore.
Mm-hmm.
The Emperor takes his forces to face the Count. The Count is busy monologuing and counting his chickens before they hatch and whatnot. And the Emperor's ship bombarded the Count's fist fortress. I don't know what else to call it. But they can't seem to make a dent. They send troops in these golden dildo torpedoes that infiltrate it. There's a blaster fight ensues inside the ship. The good guys are winning, but then these bad guys in aardvark masks show up and gun them all down without explanation. The Emperor seems defeated. The Count gets ready to unleash his great weapon, but then they remember the thing that they had all along, the Starcrash, the name of the movie, where they're going to send something into the 4th dimension and then have it re-enter our dimension or some shit. But they're going to have to sacrifice the floating city that we didn't hear about before this point or some such to do it.
They're going to like send the floating city to crash into his ship, I guess.
No mention of if there are people living on this floating city.
He mentioned something about their sacrifice will be remembered or something like that. I was like, oh, Jesus.
Yes. Stella has to go and face this alone, but not really because Ellie is back despite being really, really destroyed. We get really close up footage of a well-lit model. And it's one of those situations where I just think they forgot to shoot it in slow motion to distort the scale of the model. So it's just a regular speed shots of a model.
As you can tell, as a model, yes.
Stella and Ellie board the floating city to rig whatever the hell, and they hurdle it at the Count's fish ship. They make their escape, the city destroying the Count's mega weapon fish ship. And their ship is destroyed. Stella and Ellie make their escape, launching themselves just bodily into the vastness of space. Simon picks them up, and thank God Christopher Plummer narrates an epilogue to this thing. It's the only classy way it could have possibly ended, and finally it's over. So Jeremy, I think we can both, I know I had never heard of or had any knowledge of this film before I watched it.
I actually had, because Mystery Science Theater 3000, The Return, like the reboot they did on Netflix not long ago, one of their episodes was this, and I'd seen part of it. And so now I want to go rewatch it. Now I've just watched the regular movie by itself. God, I want to watch it again now. Just watch them make fun of it. So it's on Netflix. I think they still have it on there. The Return.
Oh yeah.
With Jonah Hill, not Jonah Hill, Jonah something Jonas, or Jonah something.
The Jonas Brothers?
No, the guy who hosts it now, he's a comedian.
I don't remember his name.
Anyways, it's funny. But yeah, this was a movie.
All right, let's talk about some things maybe we liked.
Well, I will say that this comes from the school of the Corman. He made so many of these movies in the 1970s. He produced them, Roger Corman. And there's a great documentary out there, I can't remember what it's called, but all about this Hammer films and the things that these terrible B movies from the 70s, and all the people that came from Corman films, like James Cameron got his start working with him. And they're just B movies that they pumped out, and this was one of them that he produced. But yeah, some good things. What do you want to start off with, Steve?
Okay, so I will say this. This like a lot of movies we watched recently, I think hit this category, had better music than it deserved.
Yes.
So I looked it up. John Barry, he's a composer and arranger with like 400 IMDb credits between arranger, music department, and composer. Just nuts. He worked on a bunch of films, including James Bond films, did the music for Moonraker, Octopussy, and A View to Kill. Howard the Duck, Out of Africa, won an Oscar for Dances with Wolves, Indecent Proposal, and like hundreds more.
Oh, yeah. He's a really good, and I'll take this trivia out from later, but the filmmakers were highly reluctant to allow John Barry to see the film in case he decided to quit the project because they knew how good he was. They're like, oh, we need this guy real bad. Don't let him see what he's actually composing to.
Okay, so yeah, better music than it deserved. I think that some of the miniature work was quite good. None of it was filmed well.
Yeah,
that was not a failure of the miniatures artistry. It was a failure of the cinematography.
You could tell how much detail was in every little bit of those miniatures. Like someone put hundreds of hours of work in this shit. And it just was wasted with terrible editing, terrible cinematography. Like that was the downfall of it. I mean, the costumes, the sets weren't terrible, but just the fact that the special effects were so bad, and the cinematography and editing were terrible. But yeah, like even I said, the floating city, which was a great looking miniature, they filmed it in regular. They didn't film it in slow motion. They didn't use the trick that people have been using forever to impose scale on small models, which is filming them in slow motion and filming movement and motion. Right.
And they didn't do any of those things.
No. It was like our last movie with the kangaroos, where they were filming some weird speed on it.
That's where it all went.
Yeah.
The kangaroo movie took all the slow motion.
Exactly. It took it all.
It didn't leave any for this movie.
Yeah, that was my other good thing, was just that the costumes, everything. You tell hundreds of hours went into making the crafts of this film. It was just executed so poorly. But I loved the good thing about this was I loved the campiness of it. It was so campy, but I just don't know if that's what they were actually going for. But it works for me because it was so ridiculous that it was just like it kind of made me enjoy it a little bit more. I don't know.
And then I liked it. He was the weirdest part of the film, but he was like one of the only parts I liked, and that was Acton.
He was very strange.
He was very strange, but the actor who played him was like charismatic. For a while, I thought maybe he was a robot.
Yeah.
Because of his navigator stuff. And then the jump that like he can see the future and he can deflect lasers, I guess.
and heal people, apparently.
And he has a lightsaber that is just, they didn't even try to disguise it. It's just a lightsaber.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then he's killed and turns into a wiggly light. Man, what isn't there to like here? There's some crazy trivia about him, the guy who played him.
Yeah, like a pastor for a while and like all this random
He was
stuff.
known as the youngest ordained minister. At 4 years old, he was quoting the Bible from memory.
Oof.
And like leading revival services. Sometime around 16, he felt he basically was completely delusioned with it and just didn't want to do it anymore. And it took him years to get out. And then I think it was 1971 on his final tour, he tricked his dad, who was like an evangelical minister, into letting him have a film crew follow him. And a documentary was made that was released that year and won the Oscar.
Yeah.
For best documentary about his last tour as an evangelical wonder boy.
His name was
Marjo. And then he got into acting.
Yeah. Of all things.
Yeah, he's crazy. And this was in that path.
Making this weird ass movie.
And then this one is a like, but it's a facetious like. I loved that on the miniatures and ships that lasers could literally just be shot from anywhere. And that on most of these models, they didn't put cannons on the model. So lasers were literally just animated coming out of pipes and coming
windows.
Out of domes and windows and shit.
It made no sense.
It wasn't as obvious early, but when they got to the floating city, that was when lasers could be shot from anything. When they got to the floating city, lasers everywhere.
The toilet just coming out. Who knows?
And I loved that. That's one of my favorite parts of this movie.
I love that they decided to put boobs on the big stop motion giant statue thing that attacked.
That was a hell of a choice. Giant robot boobs. You're absolutely right. Okay, things I disliked. Bad writing. I just wrote.
Yeah,
bad writing. Every obstacle was almost immediately resolved with no effort, over and over and over again.
Or explanation a lot of the times. How they overcame the obstacle wasn't explained.
But as I said earlier, the entire movie is like 4-minute chunks of a sudden problem, random resolution, done, next thing.
Yep.
And the way I think of these movies is this movie is written in a way of it's a bunch of and then statements.
Yeah. And then this happens.
And then this happens. And then this happens. Instead of because of this happens.
Right.
Or therefore this happens. It is this happens. And then this happens. And then this happens. And then I said it earlier, but I really hated that it stopped being Stella stopped being the main character about halfway through the film, or, a little over halfway through the film. Suddenly it was Hasselhoff, kind of. And it was kind of Atkin because the revelation that he could see the future and had a laser sword was big. And he kind of took over being the main character for a minute and then he died.
Yeah.
And then Christopher Plummer was there and suddenly he was the main character of the movie.
What is happening?
It was so confusing. And then they tried to bring her back at the end. It was strange.
And I just who auditioned these actors? Because they are so bad. Like the Marjo guy was he'd be really natural in one scene. And then the next scene, like you said, act like a robot. And they'd be yelling a line that shouldn't be yelled suddenly. Like, whoa, Jesus, what is wrong with you? And her lines were all dubbed really strange. And it was just what is happening in this movie? And it's weird to have a movie where David Hasselhoff is the second best actor in the movie. That's just sad.
Yeah, man.
Because
you're not wrong.
He didn't beat Christopher Plummer, but he was the second best actor in the movie. And a lot of long shots just looking at the models because they're trying to fill out that 90 minutes, okay, we've seen this model. It looks terrible.
Yeah, it really, really became really bad at the end when they were trying to board the fish ship and it was just like shots of fish ship and shots of their ships and shots of the opening in fish ship and shot of their ship flying to the opening in the fish ship, and then a shot of their gold dildos flying, and it's just
it's like, we're done with this now, please.
Yeah, come on, board the ship.
But like you said with the expositions, or not the exposition, but like the just and then they one line where they get through the red monster and make it to the planet, and Acton's like, we've just survived an attack by the most powerful weapon in the entire galaxy. And they don't explain how they got through it with no like, what? How? Like, it just made no sense.
I hope someone brought this up in the writer's room and someone said, no. They're going to be too distracted wondering what the fuck's going on with Atkin. And we're never going to explain that either.
Yeah, who cares?
They're not going to know.
And there was just so much crammed into one movie, like all these 4-minute blocks that just didn't need to be there. We need more character development, like
over and over and over and over.
We don't care about any of these characters because you haven't spent any time with them. Like,
the only character they even tried was Ellie.
I liked Ellie the robot
police officer with a southern accent.
He was great.
He was the most likable character, and they took time for her to be like, you are the most dedicated sidekick that anyone could ask for. And he's like, I value you as well. And it was like maybe the one kind of good moment in the entire movie.
And he's always nervous about things.
And then he said, lay down on this snow. I'm going to keep you alive with robot magic.
Robot magic. Yeah, that happened.
So at the very least, I think we can say this movie is worth a laugh.
Yes.
If not worth a watch.
Maybe the Mystery Science Theater version. That might help.
That might be the better option than watching this.
Yes.
on its own. But I'm glad that we honored it to get ready for Section 31.
Absolutely. So much similarities there. And some trivia for this flick. Christopher Plummer admitted that he did the film so he could visit Italy for free. In an interview, he said, give me Rome any day. I'll do porno in Rome as long as I can get to Rome. Getting to Rome was the greatest thing that happened in that time for me. The filmmakers were highly reluctant to allow John Barry to watch the film. I mentioned that earlier. New World Pictures producer Roger Corman, as I mentioned, picked up this film to see if a market existed for low-budget space operas. And he was kind of right. They made their money back in this movie. Christopher Plummer was paid $10,000 per day. Most of his scenes as the Emperor of the Galaxy were shot in one day because they're like, oh, shit, $10,000 a day? Let's get it all done one day. Come on, let's get this over with. David Hasselhoff got food poisoning during shooting, so a production assistant in a mask filled in for a significant number of scenes. That whole thing with him in the mask, that wasn't David Hasselhoff because he was shitting his pants off at that point. On his first day of works, David Hasselhoff did his own stunts, so he accidentally knocked out an Italian stuntman's tooth while he was doing a scene. Let's see. Only Marjo Gortner, David Hasselhoff, Christopher Plummer, and Joe Spinell, that was the Count, and Atkin, Hasselhoff, and Plummer, have their own voices that we heard in the English dub version. Everyone else was dubbed by different people, like when they couldn't get their lines on set, because the post-production was very tight. They couldn't afford flying out the other actors to do their own voices because it was too expensive. That's why a lot of their voice lines sounded really strange. So one of the producers asked the director to make a space opera like Star Wars, A New Hope. But the director, Luigi Cosi, had never seen Star Wars before, but he had the novelization of the film in his library. So he read the novelization and then began working on this version. So he never even watched Star Wars, but he was like, I think it's like this.
Disney did something similar, as did everyone. Like Star Wars coming out is ultimately what got Star Trek made. Mm-hmm. Was like, someone said, don't we have a star thing? Get it out. But Disney did the same thing. They made a movie called The Black Hole that was like very much we're capitalizing on Star Wars, and the music for that was also done by John Barry.
Oh my gosh, of course.
Yeah.
Caroline Munro, who plays Stella Starr, she also had a problem with food poisoning, which was revealed in an interview with a Phantasm magazine in 1993. She says, in one scene, I need to use the bathroom so bad, I thought, it's a good thing I'm wearing a plastic suit over my bikini at the moment, if you know what I mean, because she thought she was going to shit her pants while filming. And that's the part where she had that plastic suit over her lingerie. The character Acton was originally devised as a grotesque alien, but Marjo Gortner, the weird priest guy, refused to wear any heavy makeup. Shooting over 6 months was how the film was made and was frequently brought to a halt due to financial problems. The film was originally made for American International Pictures, but after seeing the final cut, they declined to release it. So they got New World Pictures to step in to do it instead. He's like, yeah, we'll do it, whatever. The American trailer for this film was the last theatrical trailer that Joe Dante edited for New World Pictures. So Joe Dante did this trailer, and then he went off to direct Gremlins and some other great films.
Good for him.
He did the trailer for this. And the last thing, this is kind of disturbing, folks. So the director, that Luigi guy, he revealed in an interview later on that he had his production manager pick out 20 actresses to play the parts of the Amazon women in the film, who are also scantily clad. And apparently the production manager brought them into the director's office one by one and had them stripped naked for him and just stand there for him to observe and approve of. And the director said he was astonished after the first one came in and did that. And he asked the production manager why he had them stripped naked when the role didn't require any nudity. And the production manager just said, because it's a beautiful sight, isn't it? And I want you to see it too. And so, but the director was just weirded out, but he didn't stop it and just continued having them come in one by one to strip naked for him. And before he cast them in the parts, that's 1977 for you, probably, when this was being cast, and disgusting. So those poor women,
oh my God,
in this movie, everyone you see on that screen had to just stand there completely naked in a room with two gross men before they got in this movie. So that's a thing. We'll leave it on that sour note. But for our bit today, we're going to play a little 20 questions again with Steve for Sci-Fi 20 questions. Now, Steve, you're going to have to guess, what is the sci-fi movie? This might be a little harder, a little bit broader here. I didn't pick any crazy ones, but well, maybe one. And you just say what it is. So what is the first sci-fi movie? 20 questions starts now.
All right. Is the main character a human?
Yes.
Does the story take place on Earth?
No.
Okay. That helps me to narrow a bunch of stuff out. Does this movie involve aliens of some sort?
Yes.
Okay. Is the protagonist a man?
No.
Alien.
Yes, good job. You might get through these faster than I thought.
We're talking about classic sci-fi. There's only so many classic sci-fi films whose protagonists were women.
That's very true. Okay.
Yeah.
And these run the gamut of years here, so you keep that in mind. All right, next one. Here we go.
All right.
You had some good ones last time. That was good.
Yeah, I'm going to probably stick with this same sort of vein. Is the main character a human?
Yes.
Does the majority of the movie take place on Earth?
Yes.
Okay. Are there robots involved?
Yes.
Is there time travel involved?
Yes.
Terminator.
I'll give it to you. I put Terminator 2 just to be a jerk, but that counts.
You jerk.
But good job.
Hey, that's 2 with 4, I think.
I think you're right. That one might have been
all right.
one less even. All
Feeling
right.
Okay.
Guardians of the Galaxy is something I just said out loud, so you can't do that one.
So why is he telling me?
Whoops. Okay, next one.
Okay. Is the main character a human?
Yes.
Does the majority of the movie take place on Earth?
Yes.
Is the main character a man?
Yes.
Okay, man on Earth, sci-fi. Is there time travel involved?
No.
Are there robots involved?
Yes.
Okay, man, Earth, robots. Are the robots friendly?
No.
If this is Terminator 3, I'm going to be pissed. I just need you to know.
I'll let you know it is not.
Does it involve crime and fighting crime?
Yes.
RoboCop.
No, but you were going in the right direction.
Was it Time Cop?
Blade Runner.
Ooh, okay,
So that was still true of that, but yeah, so it was close.
Oh, and the robots. Okay. Yeah, I'm with you.
He's kind of solving the mystery of who's causing these crimes, and it was the robots that went rogue, and so yeah.
All right, now just say out loud whatever the answer to the next one is.
This is the last one.
It's way easier when you just say it out loud.
I'm tired.
That's fair. Okay. Is the main character a human?
Yes.
Is the main character a man?
Yes.
There was a hesitation there, which tells me there might be a complex answer.
So I make sure I don't make any mistakes.
Okay. Your hesitancy just makes me nervous.
I'll say, I'll give you a free answer to that. More ensemble cast. So you can't say main character is a man or a woman.
Okay, fair. Does the majority of the movie take place on Earth?
No.
Are there robots?
No.
Are there aliens?
Hold on, I'm counting here. How many questions you've asked? Yes.
Okay. Are there gun battles?
Yes.
Is there opera?
No.
Okay.
No. I know what you're going for. No, there's not.
Yeah. Okay, good. I was like, he's got to pick up what I'm putting down. Okay. Okay, so there's gun battles in space, ensemble cast, not Guardians of the Galaxy, because you already said it. Okay. Aliens, no robots. Does this take place in the future?
Yes.
Or at the time the movie was made, did it take place in the future?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Man, this is tough.
This one's
to
tough.
Get to that like next level. Is this an animated movie?
No. Good question though.
Okay, live action. Are there like anthropomorphic animal types involved?
No.
That's a tough way to ask that question. Okay.
Yeah, I think I got
But no dog men.
No.
Okay. Aliens, ensemble, in space. No dog men. In the future. The ensemble cast is what I'm getting stuck on, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And once again, if this is Alien 4, I'm going to be pissed.
No, nothing of the same franchises. Nothing repeats.
Okay. There's gun battles. Man.
You have 10 questions left.
Are you sure this isn't Guardians of the Galaxy?
Yeah.
You're just fucking with me?
No.
Okay.
You can think outside the box and things like ask if we talked about this in the past, have we talked about it in this episode, things like those kind of questions as well.
Have we talked about it this episode?
No.
God damn it.
Have
we talked about it in some episode before?
Yes.
Oh my God. That didn't help at all. Is there a lot? Do people die in this movie?
Yes.
Do more than 10 people die in this movie?
I'd say pretty close. I'm not exactly certain, but it could be around that.
Okay. So not like mass death, not a planet exploding. Is there anything in the movie that would be defined as like magic or mystical?
Yes.
What question am I on?
I think you have 6 left.
Is that magical thing the Force?
No. You have 4 questions left, actually.
God damn it. It's not the Force. Gun battles.
Maybe our listeners have it already. Maybe they don't.
I don't know. I'm going to take a stab in the dark because I don't have any good questions.
Okay.
But I think the 10 people probably is what is going to do. Avatar?
No.
Way more than 10.
So the answer is Galaxy of Terror.
Oh my fuck. What a bad movie to remember.
We've forgotten more about that movie than was ever written about it.
That's right.
But you did good. You got 2 out of 4 because I would have had 5.
And those 2 I got record.
You did very well on those. I was thought Terminator 2 would be a little difficult because it doesn't feel as sci-fi because it's in our current time kind of. But you did a great job with that. So
as soon as I knew robots were involved and it took place on Earth, that really.
And I think you technically won because I gave you one by just saying the name out loud.
3 out of 5, baby.
So that brings us some radical recommends.
If you have the means, I highly recommend picking one up.
What do you recommend I do?
I recommend Pleasant.
All right. So this week, my radical recommend, I've been kind of poking around looking for new shows to watch. And after a few disappointments, admittedly, including one that I was very much looking forward to called The Pit, which takes place in Pittsburgh. It stars Noah Wiley from ER, and it's like a hospital drama. Not good.
Oh.
I ended up stumbling into The Rookie with Nathan Fillion.
Oh, yeah.
Where he plays a, middle-aged man who goes through a divorce and decides to become a police officer at like age 40. And so he's the old guy, but he's the rookie. It is good comedy, good interpersonal hijinks, some decent police drama kind of stuff, but that's not why you're there. Really, Nathan Fillion sells the whole show.
Oh, yeah.
They clearly depended on him selling the whole show. So that's my radical recommend this week. It might not be from everybody, but it's been a nice change of pace as I've been looking for new shows to take in. The Rookie.
Something more lighthearted, kind of just play in the background kind of thing.
Exactly. I don't have to care that much.
Yeah, I like those kind of shows occasionally. Fantastic. Well, that brings us to some trailer reviews. So we are in the dry spell times of the year, but there was an interesting trailer that popped up I found. Apparently came out a couple months ago, but I never heard of it. Called The Legend of Ochi, made by A24, who only makes pretty much good stuff all the time. And it's basically the story of a young girl actually living on some kind of island, Denmark area, something like that. I got the feel.
Yeah, I could see that. Like
Sweden.
Netherlands, kind of.
Yeah. And like, and she lives it's modern times, but this island's kind of disconnected from society a little bit and kind of backward. And they have, trucks and technology, but they're kind of just in their old ways. And they are very into the myths of the area and some kind of Bigfoot type creature, Yeti kind of creature that they claim is dangerous. And they train from a young age to like kind of hunt them and make sure they don't take over the island. And this girl meets a little baby one that's injured in a trap, and she nurses it back to health, and she becomes friends with it and she wants to take it back home to wherever it belongs on the island. And her family finds out that she went missing with this dangerous creature. So they try to go find her, and hijinks ensue with a pretty darn cute animation with this little creature, little Ochi. And it looks interesting. Willem Dafoe playing the deranged kind of island leader who wears like old battle armor of like the Vikings to go hunting these Ochi. It just looks kind of very different and interesting and kind of cute. What would you think, Steve?
So I agree. I think it's interesting that Willem Dafoe is clearly the centerpiece of whatever this is going to be. You're right. A24, I'm not going to say everything they do is great, but everything they do is thoughtful, and it's not, a throwaway. And I'm interested to see them kind of extend more into like sci-fi fantasy kind of territory.
It's something not horror for once, too.
But this looks more whimsical.
Yeah,
I guess. That being said, it is hard for me to imagine this is any real original story. in that, like, the little girl takes the thing, finds out it's not so bad, says she's going to take it home. Her family doesn't understand. Her and the thing bond, and then she realizes maybe it is dangerous or maybe it is difficult. She leaves the thing. Thing gets in trouble. She rescues the thing. Adult other thing sees that she does this and lets her escape, but ultimately thing decides to go off with its own people, and she goes back with her grandfather, Willem Dafoe. The end of the movie is going to be a cut to 20 years later where she's visiting her grandfather's grave and looks into the woods and does that weird call that we see in the trailer, and from the woods comes back that same call indicating that her and this thing's relationship has continued all these years. I can literally tell you that is the end of this movie.
You mean this is not E.T. all over again? It is exactly. It's what's the movie we watched? The McDonald's movie with the little creature,
Mac and Me.
Mac and Me. It's basically that all over again.
Nothing is Mac and Me, because this will not have a 5-minute dance music video for McDonald's and Coca-Cola in the middle.
That is true.
With Ronald fucking McDonald there. So while I do think this looks cute, I'm interested, something from A24, I expect it to be quality. There's nothing about this plot that makes me wonder what the movie's going to be.
True. Nothing too original, but just original looking,
Right.
but not, different setting, same story. It's like the Last Samurai. That story's been told a million times. Dancing with
Exactly.
Wolves.
Avatar. Yeah, they all bleed together. So I'm going to give this one, Raul Julia, as a young man, is taught by his grandfather to hunt dangerous creatures in the woods. And he goes out one night and gets separated from his grandfather and ends up finding a Busey alone in a bush.
A baby Busey.
The legend of Busey. And Raul Julia befriends him, and they sing little songs to each other. But Raul's family doesn't understand, and he has to get Busey back to his own type. And they bond, but then Busey bites him. and Raul's grandfather comes for him, and Busey gets rescued by Raul. And then I'm recounting the entire plot. I just said it's going to happen.
Yes.
But an older Busey is going to threaten him, and young Busey is going to end up going off with older Busey. And then we're going to cut to 20 years later while Raul Julia is at Willem Dafoe's grave. And he sings a little song, and you hear the Busey somewhere in the distance sing it back to him.
What does a Busey call sound like? And I'm going to review this film. It's the continuation of the series, the Legend of Busey. It goes on to be world planet of the Buseys. So basically, we have hundreds of years later in the future, where now the Buseys have taken over Earth, and there's no more humans left. And so they've basically evolved to be smart, like the Raul Julias once were. And so now it's planet of the world of the Buseys.
Planet of the world of Buseys. I like that.
That's what happens. That's what happens.
Dawn of the planet of the world of the Buseys of the.
Yeah. Of the. Oh, man.
Well, that brings us to the end of episode 214. Join us next time, where in honor of the exciting new entry in the Marvel Universe, Captain America Brave New World, we're going to talk about a movie that some have forgotten. A less brave, older world of Captain America. And of course, that's the 1990 Captain America film that time forgot, and so did all of we. We're going to talk about it right here to get you primed and pumped for Captain America Brave New World. Come on back for that, and we will be your nerdy co-hosts if you be our nerdy audience. Thanks again, Internet.
Stay nerdy, my friends. Thanks for listening to A Play on Nerds. Feel free to email feedback at aplayonnerds.com with all your questions or comments.
Shoot us a message on Facebook or Twitter and earn yourself a sweet shout out on the show.
Review us on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts so even more nerds can find us. Tell your friends, tell your enemies, we aren't picky.
Check out our entire back catalog and other offerings at aplayonnerds.com.
And how?